Hey guys, Ben here and welcome back to another video on The Flash Season 9. Today we're going to be talking about the return of Rick Cosnett playing a very new character. We're going to be theorizing about what exactly could be going on. So if you do go on to enjoy the video, please be sure to leave a like and a comment and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future DCTV videos later this year. Okay, so I've gone into a lot of detail. This is going to be a bonus theory video and I'm going to have another one out tomorrow on the other main topic that everyone is freaking out about, that being of course Barry becoming the original Flash. But in regards to today's topic, I've rewatched the scene over and over and over, and I've got a lot of notes and I've got a lot of theories about what could exactly be going on with this Malcolm Gilmore. So let's get into this. So at the start of last episode, we had the introduction scene which introduced us to Malcolm Gilmore. He is a doctor who works at Mercury Labs. There is nothing much more else set up in regards to where he's from. Is it a new world? Is it a different timeline? Is he from the future? They don't say any of that, so we're going to be theorizing about that in this video. Also, who exactly is he, what's his motivations, and what's his link to Cobalt Blue, which we saw in this episode, but clearly it wasn't controlled by the Malcolm that we were seeing in his current day present. And so let's first off start with the simple thing that a lot of people missed, and that's the fact that if you're watching and maybe if you tape the episode on your TV, you can see when he enters Mercury Labs, if you pause on your TV, that on his name tag you can see his name. His name is Malcolm Gilmore. At first I was thinking this was a Gilmore Girls reference, but then after doing more research today after the episode had aired and I watched the scene over and over, I realized that it's actually an Easter egg to the comics, because Malcolm Thorne in the comics, who is Barry's long lost twin, was part of a mix-up when he was baby, and the doctor that was working at the hospital at the time that Malcolm and Barry were both born mixed up the babies and sent Malcolm to live with the Thornes. And Malcolm Thorne in the comics, he resented him and Barry for a long time as he realized what a great life he could have had if he actually grew up with Barry. And so actually in the comics, the surname of that doctor is in fact Gilmore. So I believe that is the reference and that's why they've gone for that. And also the fact that he is Dr. Malcolm Gilmore. So he is a doctor just like that doctor in the comics. So I think it's one big Easter egg. I don't think you can read too much into the name apart from the Malcolm part of it, because I do believe that part of his name is important. And so let's get into the theorizing. Is Malcolm Barry's long lost twin? That's what everyone's going to ask straight away, because everyone's thinking Malcolm Thorne, just like in the comics. But I'm going to say it's probably not likely based on where he is, his actual location and potential time period. I'm fairly certain this could be in the future or in another world. The twin theory is more likely to be linked to Barry if Malcolm is actually from another world, but I quite strongly believe that he is from the future, and we're going to get into that later in this video. But number two, could he be Eddie Thorne's twin from the past? Obviously they would have to do a lot of explaining in regards to how he is in the future if it does turn out to be the future, but the reality is I don't think it's super likely that Eddie Thorne had a twin brother. I find that less likely, but there is another option that we need to discuss now, and that is the idea that he could be a doppelganger, and he's not a twin of anyone. He's just a doppelganger of Eddie Thorne. He looks exactly the same as him. Yes, he doesn't know him, which is the case with most doppelgangers. They don't know their other counterparts from different Earths or anything like that, especially in the past. And so the question is Malcolm Gilmore an entirely different person who is completely unlinked from them, apart from being a doppelganger of Eddie Thorne? And so I think what could lend some credence to that is his name and the fact that he isn't a Thorne. I think if they actually had the name tag be Malcolm Thorne, you can be like, okay, they're doing the twin route. But with him looking exactly like Eddie but having a different name, I believe it's very likely he could be a doppelganger. Let's talk about where Malcolm lives. So at the start of the episode, we see Malcolm in the West household, and it looks different, but it's the same. You can instantly tell where he is. Could it be that this is the same house, but in the future, and he's obviously just kept it the same, and it's a coincidence that he is living there? Or is it not a coincidence, something else is going on? I don't know too much in regards to the house situation, but it's an interesting link that just makes everything even more complicated and even more interesting. Let's move on to the next part of my theory. Malcolm could be from the future, and I've said this throughout this video, and I feel very strong about this based on what we got when we originally saw the Cobalt Blue crystal at the end of last season. And so based on the tech that Malcolm is using in his lab, you can see on the screen right here, it looks pretty high tech. That is not a normal computer screen, and it's touchscreen, plus also he's developing some sort of device that looks very technically advanced. I don't know if what he's working on is important or not, but I think just looking at the tech and looking where he is and looking at the building, this doesn't look like current day Mercury Labs. It looks way more advanced. And so the blue crystal was originally from the future. If you go back and watch that scene, it's in fact set in 2049. And so I'm pretty sure that this version of the character, Malcolm Gilmore, is in fact from 2049. Don't know when he was born, but he lives there in the future. So it might not actually be an entirely new world, but just set in the future. And that's why it looks different, because they are making a distinctive change from the way things look in terms of where Team Flash is in the present and the past, obviously in 2000, and then hopping to the Malcolm scenes. It's pretty clear that it's the future, and I'm pretty sure that they held back any kind of subtitles in regards to dates in order to keep the mystery going. Okay, so let's continue with this theory. So let's talk about the red lightning. We have to talk about this because I would say this is actually the most interesting part of it all, because you see this red lightning, this red thunderstorm. I guess we could call it a Speed Force storm, just like in the comics and like what we got back at the end of season 3. And so I believe that the red lightning, in fact, targeted Malcolm. So hear me out here. We all know that the negative forces will one day have to choose a negative Speed Force avatar, and Barry even said that during the ending scene of last season where you saw the blue crystal for the first time in 2049. So someone has to become that negative Speed Force avatar, and considering that the red lightning was present in the Speed Force storm and it wasn't just a normal lightning bolt that hit Malcolm at the end of the episode, I think given the fact that it's the same circumstances as when Barry was struck, this has most definitely been set up, and I think Malcolm has been targeted by this red lightning. Whether it's the negative Speed Force or not, that remains to be seen, but I feel pretty strongly that it probably is. And so he's probably going to have powers, and he's going to have red lightning just like Thorne, because you see it after he gets struck by the lightning, his body is coursing with red lightning. It's interesting that he doesn't go into a coma. He pretty much wakes up instantly afterwards, and he doesn't seem too hurt. Like when Barry was struck by lightning, he had to go to hospital and everything. He's able to get up and he's able to kind of mosey around and check out what exactly has gone on, because obviously he's in a state of shock after being hit by that lightning bolt. And so what's actually most mysterious of all is when that red lightning bolt hit him, sent him flying back. Obviously he was doused by all the chemicals, probably giving him Speed Force powers. The lightning supposedly sent Eddie Thorne's file to him. So you see it on the ground and it's coursing with red lightning, almost like it's been thrown in by the lightning bolt itself. So is someone in the lightning bolt? Is it just like in the comics when Barry became the lightning bolt that struck himself? Is this Reverse Flash as the red lightning bolt striking this version of Eddie Thorne or a doppelganger or whoever he is? Malcolm Gilmore has been targeted by this red lightning bolt. I feel very strongly about this, especially considering Eddie's file is coursing with red lightning when he finds it. He picks it up and sees a photo of someone that looks exactly like himself but in a completely different profession. Obviously Eddie was a cop and this version of the character is a doctor, and he doesn't recognize him at all. He's like, who the hell is Eddie Thorne? And the reason that I believe that this file has been delivered to him by this lightning bolt is the fact that he would never have this file. Like, he's never seen it before, so why would it be in his lab? He's clearly a doctor, he's a scientist, he is not anyone involved with the police, so why would he have a police file? And it's literally appeared out of nowhere. So I'm nearly 100% certain that someone is controlling him and leading him down a certain path by giving him negative Speed Force powers, supposedly by striking him with that lightning bolt from that Speed Force storm. You really wonder who could conduct something so powerful to create an entire storm and channel the lightning right into the perfect place to hit him and also drop off that file. It's clearly someone extremely powerful, probably with the connection to the negative Speed Force and all the different negative forces, because maybe you could presume they could do something like that. But let's go back to Cobalt Blue in this episode. So you see him in the form of Joe in this episode. He takes over because Joe picks up the blue crystal, and I believe anyone that picks it up is going to be inhabited by Cobalt Blue. I guess this is how he's able to be in loads of places at once, because he doesn't literally need to be physically there, but by having this crystal in certain time periods, probably all over time, he's able to be everywhere. And so what if this Cobalt Blue that we're actually seeing is Malcolm? However, it's Malcolm from even further in the future. It's a Malcolm who is much older, where he's completely lost his mind after going down this path that the negative Speed Force has set him down. And what we're seeing now is the beginning of Cobalt Blue, by seeing Malcolm getting struck by the red lightning bolt, finding out about Eddie Thawne for the first time. He's going to go down this big rabbit hole, and so I find it very likely that what we're seeing is the beginning of him as Cobalt Blue, and what we're seeing with Barry facing off against Cobalt Blue Joe in the past is a future version of the character. So I believe we're seeing two versions at once. It's super interesting because the voice and person that is inhabiting Joe knows literally everything about Barry and everything that's happened, so it's clear that he's been at this for a very, very long time. And he even in the episode says, "I've been waiting for you since the dawn of time." So clearly this is a jaded, much older version of Cobalt Blue. What do you guys think of my theory? Let me know down in the comments below. I feel pretty strongly by it. Let's talk about two more theories that have to be mentioned, because I think they are ideas that people have in their minds. And let's talk about the possibility of him being from an entirely different world, because I don't think that is far-fetched, considering in the previous episode before this, with the return of Green Arrow and Wally West, we saw the reintroduction of the multiverse. Team Flash found out that the multiverse still exists. It's not just Earth Prime. There was a bunch of new Earths that were created after Crisis, and so the multiverse is out there, and there are doppelgangers out there. But I feel like this is a little bit of a long shot, just based on how strong I think the future theory is. Despite how dissimilar that world that we see Malcolm is, it looks very different from our world. So I'm not going to shut this down entirely yet, but I'm going to say it's less likely. Okay, so one big what if. This is a huge theory, and I'm sure some of you guys are thinking it too. Let's talk about this. Could this actually be our Eddie Thawne? Could it be the real one who died supposedly and was sent into that singularity at the end of season 1? And what happens if he somehow survived and was dropped off in the future? And he lost all of his memories, that's why he doesn't know who Eddie is, and he started a new life upon arriving in this time period. And so, being completely unaware of his past, I believe this negative force that is guiding him and has given him the file on Eddie Thawne could be leading him down a path of rediscovery about who he actually is. And so the negative Speed Force could be manipulating and targeting him because of what he has lost and the fact that he is completely unaware of what happened. And obviously the forces would be aware of what's happened because they are all powerful and pretty much all knowing. And so what happens if the negative Speed Force is toying with him to get him to hate Barry for stealing his life virus, for letting him die? We know that there is going to be a heavy connection between Cobalt Blue, Iris and Barry. So what happens if this theory turns out to be true? Honestly, I think it's a little bit more likely than the multiverse theory. But for now, I'm going to stick with the fact that I think the negative Speed Force, or whoever is controlling it, has targeted Malcolm, and maybe this is just a doppelganger from the future in 2049, or it is in fact already Thorne, who somehow survived the singularity and was dropped into the future with no memories, and so that's why he's got this whole new life in this completely different world. So what do you guys think about all of this? Let me know down in the comments below. I'm really excited to see more about him. If you want any more theory videos, let me know any theories that you have in the comments down below. If there's anything really interesting, I'll be sure to cover it before next week's episode of The Flash. Obviously, it's going to be a big episode next week too, because we're going to find out more about him and more about everything that's going on in this big final saga of The Flash. So that does it. Please be sure to leave a like and a comment. It really helps out the channel. Also, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any future videos. And you can click on the top right corner of the screen to watch my latest video, and I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.
I see red.